This is biological weathering because it's a tree breaking apart concrete. As the tree grows, it pushes up the concrete and creates cracks in it that eventually break the concrete apart, as shown right here in the video. You can see there's a hole in the ground because the roots push it up so much. So the roots take up water and nutrients in the ground, and at the root tips there's what's called apical meristem, or places of cell division where new cells are produced, and it causes the roots to lengthen and expand in diameter. So this video has a little bit of both weathering and erosion, but I felt like I needed to explain the weathering part of this first. So here we could have a mixture of chemical, physical, and biological weathering, because there's plants at the top here. And so basically, chemical weathering for this one, it could have been rain that washed down over the rocks that are up at the top of the cliff, and they could have gone through the cracks that are already inside of the rocks and then expanded those as everything froze if it got really cold at night. And then for biological, so the plants could have grown, like their roots could have grown into the cracks in the plants, which could have broken apart some of the rocks. Because at the top you can see that the rocks are like broken apart, but some of them are still staying there. And then for the erosion part of this, that could be a mixture of both rain, wind, and the tides. So for rain, when weathered rocks were up at the top, if rain washed down on them and it was like a strong enough storm mixed with wind to give it a little push, and those could have fallen down. And then once they're at the bottom, they could have experienced more weathering and been broken down into smaller rocks until eventually they turned into the sand, which I just showed. And then the tide could have gone up when it was a high tide and washed those out to shore. So a bunch of these rocks, like the sand down at the bottom, it could have originated from the rocks that are at the top of this cliff and then just fallen down, and some of that could have been the original broken down particles from the rock at the top of the cliff, or they could be washed up from the ocean, and those particles could have come from miles and miles away. There's no really way to tell because obviously there's different types of rocks in different parts of the US and the world, wherever these rocks came from, basically. But yeah, so those little rivets in the top there at the cliff, that's showing the weathering in the rock before it moves away, because that's broken pieces. But yeah, so here's weathering and erosion.